The human ship Wayfarer drifted slowly at the edge of an unknown star system. Its metal body was scarred from long travel, but its crew was calm. This mission was meant to be simple: scan the system, make peaceful contact if intelligent life existed, then return home with reports. No one expected history to change that day. Commander Elias Carter stood on the observation deck, hands clasped behind his back. He was not the loud type, not the heroic figure people wrote songs about. He was chosen for missions like this because he stayed calm when others panicked. He listened more than he spoke. In space, that mattered. The sensors had confirmed it hours ago. A vast civilization lived here. Not just one planet, but several, all connected by massive energy networks. The technology was far beyond human standards, yet the signals they sent were peaceful. A soft tone sounded. "Commander," the navigation officer said. "They are responding again." "Visual channel request." Elias nodded. "Put it through." The air shimmered, and a tall alien figure appeared as a hologram. The being had a long, elegant form, skin like polished stone, and eyes that glowed faintly blue. Its voice was calm and layered, as if many tones spoke together. "We are the Aurelian Concord," the alien said. "You have entered our sovereign space. We do not sense hostility. We come in peace," Elias replied evenly. "We are explorers from Earth. We seek knowledge, not conflict." There was a pause. The alien's eyes brightened slightly. "Then you will be welcomed," it said. "Our queen invites a representative of your people to attend a formal greeting." The crew exchanged looks. This was faster than expected. "Any traps?" someone whispered. Elias studied the data. Everything pointed to honesty. "I'll go," he said. The landing craft touched down on a wide platform made of smooth crystal. Towers rose into the sky like frozen waves, glowing softly with energy. Elias stepped out alone, wearing a simple uniform. He carried no weapon. That was intentional. Alien guards stood in two long lines, tall and still. At the far end, massive doors opened silently. Inside was a hall larger than anything Elias had ever seen. The ceiling arched high above, filled with moving light patterns that told stories he could not yet understand. At the center stood the queen. She was taller than the others, her presence commanding without effort. Her crown was not metal but living crystal, shifting colors with her thoughts. Her eyes met Elias's, sharp and curious. "This is the human?" she asked. "Yes, my queen," an attendant replied. Elias bowed slightly, following what he believed was respectful behavior. "I am Commander Elias Carter. It's an honor to meet you." The queen studied him for a long moment. "You carry yourself without fear. I believe understanding begins with respect," Elias said. A low murmur spread through the court. The queen raised a hand, silencing them. "Today marks first contact between our peoples. By ancient law, we must seal this moment with a binding ritual." Elias hesitated. "Binding ritual?" "It is symbolic," the queen said, "a gesture of trust." Symbolic sounded safe. Elias nodded. Attendants approached, placing a thin band of glowing material around his wrist. Another band was placed around the queen's arm. The floor beneath them lit up, symbols spreading outward like ripples. The moment the final symbol activated, the air changed. A shockwave of energy pulsed through the hall. The bands fused into Elias's skin, painless but impossible to remove. The symbols rose into the air, forming ancient shapes. The court gasped. "No," one noble whispered. "That symbol is—" The queen's eyes widened. The hall went silent. "What just happened?" Elias asked, his calm finally cracking. An elder stepped forward, voice shaking. "The bond has completed." The queen slowly turned to Elias. "Human, do you understand what has been done?" "I was told it was symbolic," Elias said carefully. "It is," she replied, "but not in the way you think." She took a breath. "By our laws, that ritual was a royal union." The words hit like a physical force. "Union?" Elias repeated. "You are now bound to me," the queen said, "as consort." Chaos erupted. Voices rose in shock and disbelief. A mistake. Impossible. The laws are clear. Elias felt the weight of 1,000 eyes. There must be a way to undo it. The queen shook her head slowly. The bond recognizes intent, not knowledge. You stepped forward willingly. The ritual accepted you. She looked almost troubled. I did not seek this, she said quietly. Nor did you. Guards moved closer, not threatening, but protective around both of them. The queen raised her voice. Silence. The law has spoken. She turned back to Elias. You are under my protection. Leaving this world now would be dangerous. Dangerous how? Elias asked. Politically, she replied. And personally. Elias exhaled slowly. Training kicked in. Panic would help no one. Then I will stay, he said. The queen searched his face. You would accept this? I accept responsibility, Elias replied. Even for accidents. A strange expression crossed her features. Respect, perhaps. The court was dismissed, but whispers followed Elias as he was escorted through the palace. Rooms were prepared. Guards posted. Every step reminded him that his life had changed forever. Hours later, he stood alone in a chamber overlooking the alien city. Lights stretched to the horizon. Somewhere far away, his crew waited, confused and worried. A soft sound behind him. The queen entered, alone. This union places you at the center of our empire, she said. Many will see you as a weakness. I don't feel very powerful, Elias admitted. She almost smiled. Power is not always force. She paused. Our bond allows limited sharing of perception. I can sense your emotions. That seems personal, Elias said. It is unavoidable, she replied. But it also means I know you did not plan this. Silence stretched between them. I won't pretend to understand your world, Elias said. But I won't harm it either. That, the queen said softly, is why the bond accepted you. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Elias Carter had come as an explorer. By accident, he had become something far more dangerous to the galaxy. A human bound to a throne. And nothing would ever be the same. Morning on the Aurelian capital world did not come with a sunrise. Instead, the sky slowly shifted colors, deep violet fading into soft gold as the system's primary star brightened. From the high balcony of his assigned chamber, Elias Carter watched the city awaken. Streams of light moved along invisible paths, carrying energy, transport, and communication across the vast metropolis. It was beautiful. It was also terrifying. Elias was no longer a visitor. Every movement he made was recorded. Every word he spoke was studied. He was the human who had become consort to an alien queen by accident, and the Empire did not know what to do with him. Inside the palace, reactions were divided. Some nobles called the union an insult to tradition. Others feared it was a sign from ancient forces they barely understood. A few, more dangerous than the rest, saw opportunity. A foreign consort was a weakness they could use. Elias felt all of it, even when no one spoke. The bond between him and the queen was subtle but real. He could sense distant emotions, pressure, concern, flashes of irritation that were not his own. He learned quickly to separate his thoughts from hers. It took effort. But humans were good at adaptation. The queen, whose name was Sarilith, summoned him later that day. The throne chamber was quieter than before. Fewer observers. Fewer whispers. Still, the weight of the place pressed down on him. You are learning to shield your thoughts, Sarilith said as he approached. I had practice. Elias replied. Living with people in small ships teaches you mental privacy. That is impressive, she said. She gestured for him to stand beside her, not below. The choice did not go unnoticed by the court officials present. Today, Sarilith announced, the human consort will observe council proceedings. Murmurs spread instantly. An elder stepped forward. My queen, this may be premature. Sarilith's gaze hardened. The bond is law. He must understand the weight he carries. Elias said nothing. He simply stood, hands folded, expression calm. The council chamber filled with debate. Trade routes, border tensions, internal stability. Elias listened carefully. Even when the language shifted into layered tones he barely understood. Translation systems helped, but meaning came more from behavior than words. He noticed patterns. Who spoke loudly? Who avoided eye contact? Who watched him instead of the queen? At one point, a noble named Kalor rose. The presence of a human alters balance, Kalor said. Our rivals already whisper. They will test us. They already are, Seralith replied. And we will endure. Kalor's eyes flicked to Elias. With respect, my queen, endurance has limits. Elias felt a ripple of tension from Seralith through the bond. He chose his moment carefully. May I speak? Elias asked. The chamber froze. Seralith studied him. You may. Elias took a breath. On Earth, we learned something the hard way. Strength invites challenge. Weakness invites destruction. But misunderstanding invites war. Kalor tilted his head. You imply we misunderstand you? No, Elias said calmly. You misunderstand us. A few nobles reacted sharply, but Elias continued. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we cooperate under pressure. If your rivals test you, they will be watching how you respond to change. Fear will only confirm their expectations. Silence followed. Seralith spoke. You offer counsel without demand. That is rare. 1. I'm not here to rule, Elias said. I'm here because I have to be, so I'll do the least harm I can. The council adjourned shortly after. Later, as they walked through a quiet corridor of living crystal, Seralith spoke softly. You embarrassed them. I'm sorry, Elias said. She stopped. Do not be. They needed it. I feed her wide. Enabata. She studied him. You do not seek control. That makes you unpredictable. That's not usually a compliment where I'm from. It is here, she replied. But outside the palace, tension grew. Rumors spread across the empire. Some worlds welcomed the idea of a human connection. Others rejected it completely. A border fleet from a rival power repositioned closer, testing defenses. One evening, alarms echoed through the palace. Elias was escorted to a secure chamber, where Seralith joined him moments later. A message has arrived, she said. From the Varkesh Dominion. That sounds bad, Elias said. They challenged the legitimacy of my rule, Seralith said. Specifically because of you. Elias felt the words settle heavily. So, I'm the problem. You are the excuse, she corrected. The message was projected into the air. A tall, armored alien figure appeared. Queen Seralith, the Varkesh commander said. Your union violates interstellar norms. Remove the human, and we will reconsider peace. Elias stepped forward before Seralith could speak. I won't ask her to do that, he said. The commander laughed, a harsh sound. You think your opinion matters? Yes, Elias replied. Because if you attack, you won't be fighting just her empire. The commander's eyes narrowed. Explain. You'll be fighting the idea that alliances are fragile, Elias said. Humans don't forget who threatens those we stand beside. The transmission ended abruptly. Seralith turned to Elias. You provoke them? No, he said. I warned them. Days passed under growing strain. Military readiness increased. Diplomats moved quickly. Elias spent long hours learning Aurelian history, culture, and law. He asked questions others had stopped asking centuries ago. Why borders existed. Why old enemies remained enemies. Why pride mattered more than survival. Some answers disturbed him. One night, Seralith joined him on the balcony again. You carry guilt, she said. I brought danger to your people, Elias replied. You brought truth, she countered. Danger was already here. She looked out over the city. I was raised to rule alone. Bonds were tools. Power was isolation. And now? Elias asked. Now I feel balance, she said slowly. It frightens me. Elias smiled faintly. That makes two of us. A warning alert pulsed through the palace systems. The Varkesh fleet had crossed the boundary. The galaxy was watching. And for the first time, humanity stood at the center of alien history, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as a presence that refused to step aside. Elias straightened his posture. If this was the role fate had forced upon him, he would face it the human way. Calm, adaptive, unyielding. The first sign of real danger did not come from weapons fire. It came from silence. Across the outer defense line of the Aurelian Concord, long-range sensors showed the Varkesh fleet holding position. Dozens of massive ships floated in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing light. They did not advance. They did not retreat. They waited. Inside the Aurelian palace, the atmosphere grew heavy. Advisors spoke in low voices. Military leaders argued in sharp tones. Every decision felt like it carried the weight of centuries. Elias Carter stood near the edge of the strategy chamber, listening. The Varkesh Dominion was known for one thing above all else: pressure. They pushed their enemies into making the first mistake, then used law, force, or politics to finish them. They want us to strike first, one general said. Then they claim justification. And if we do nothing, another replied. They tighten the noose. Queen Seralith sat at the center, calm on the surface. But the bond carried her tension clearly to Elias. She was calculating, weighing lives against pride. They demand the removal of the human consort, an elder said. Elias felt the room subtly turn toward him. He stepped forward before Seralith could speak. If you remove me, Elias said evenly, you prove their point. Several nobles reacted sharply. You are not qualified to speak on matters of empire. True, Elias replied. But I am qualified to recognize a trap. Seralith raised a hand. Let him speak. Elias continued. The Varkesh don't care about me. They care about control. If you break your own law under threat, every rival will learn how to bend you. Silence followed. A general asked, and your solution, human? Elias took a slow breath. You don't answer force with force. You answer pressure with exposure. Elias. Seralith turned slightly toward him. Explain. Humans learned long ago that wars don't start with weapons, Elias said. They start with stories. The Varkesh are telling one that this empire is unstable. So we tell a stronger one. Over the next hours, Elias worked alongside Aurelian strategists. He did not command. He suggested. He asked questions others had stopped asking. What laws governed interstellar conflict? What treaties bound the Varkesh publicly? What neutral observers monitored these borders? The answers formed a pattern. The Varkesh could not legally attack without proof of aggression. They relied on intimidation and internal pressure. If exposed, their position weakened. Elias proposed something unexpected. A public assembly. Invite neutral systems, he said. Open your court. Let them see the bond, the law, and your unity. One noble scoffed. You want to put our fate on display? Yes, Elias replied. Because secrecy helps bullies. Seralith studied him for a long moment. Through the bond, Elias felt her doubt, and then resolve. Prepare the assembly, she said. We face this openly. News spread across the galaxy. The Aurelian Concord would host a full diplomatic convergence, broadcasting live. All would witness the Queen, her human consort, and the law that bound them. The Varkesh responded with movement. Their fleet advanced slightly, just enough to be seen. Fear rippled through border worlds. On the day of the assembly, Elias stood beside Seralith before a vast chamber filled with representatives of dozens of species. Holographic platforms floated in layered circles, each carrying diplomats, observers, and recorders. The bond between Elias and Seralith felt steady now, like a shared rhythm. Seralith spoke first. We stand accused of instability. She gestured to Elias. This human did not seek power. He did not manipulate law. He stepped forward in peace and accepted responsibility when tradition acted beyond his knowledge. The Varkesh envoy appeared next, towering and armored. This union weakens her rule, the envoy declared. Remove him, and order returns. Elias stepped forward. "I'd like to ask a question," he said. The envoy sneered. "You may try." Elias looked around the chamber. How many here have laws older than their current rulers? Nearly every platform glowed in agreement. How many honor those laws because breaking them would mean chaos? More lights. Elias turned back to the envoy. "Then why should this empire be the only one expected to break its foundation to satisfy your discomfort?" The chamber stirred. The envoy hissed. "This is manipulation." "No," Elias said calmly. "This is consistency." He raised his wrist, showing the bonded mark. "This bond does not give me authority. It gives me obligation. I cannot command this empire. I can only stand with it." Seralith spoke again. "If the Varkesh believe this bond invalid, they may challenge it through lawful trial." The envoy froze. A lawful trial meant exposure, evidence, witnesses. They had none. Hours passed as neutral parties examined the ritual records, ancient law, and energy signatures of the bond. The conclusion was unavoidable. The union was valid. The Varkesh envoy withdrew without comment. But the danger was not over. As the assembly ended, alarms flared across the border. A Varkesh splinter fleet had moved independently, violating even their own laws. "They are forcing escalation," a general said. Elias watched the tactical display. "No," he said quietly. "They are isolating themselves." Seralith turned to him. "What do you see?" "A mistake," Elias replied. "And an opportunity." The Aurelian fleet did not rush forward. Instead, they repositioned to protect civilian worlds first. Every movement was broadcast, every action transparent. Elias coordinated with diplomats, sending immediate evidence of the Varkesh violation to neutral systems. Within hours, support messages arrived. Trade sanctions, border closures, diplomatic condemnation. The Varkesh splinter fleet hesitated. They had expected fear. They found unity. Finally, the fleet retreated. The crisis did not end with celebration. It ended with exhaustion. In the quiet after, Elias stood alone in the palace garden, surrounded by softly glowing plants that responded to thought rather than touch. Seralith joined him. "You placed yourself between empires," she said. "I didn't feel brave," Elias replied. "Just necessary." She studied him. "Many in my court once saw you as weakness. And now? Now they fear losing you," she said. Elias looked at his bonded mark. "I never wanted to be important." "Importance was never the point," Seralith said. "Impact was." She paused. "You changed how the galaxy sees humanity." Elias shook his head slightly. "Humanity changed itself long before today. I just showed them." For the first time since arriving, Elias felt something close to peace. But deep space was never quiet for long. Far beyond known borders, watchers took note. A human had stood against pressure without raising a weapon, and the galaxy would remember that. The days after the assembly were unlike anything Elias Carter had ever experienced. Peace, tentative and fragile, spread across the borders of the Aurelian Concord. The Varkesh Dominion had withdrawn its immediate threat, but the galaxy was vast, and history showed that rivals never truly disappeared, they only waited. Elias stood once again on the palace balcony, the city below alive with soft, shifting lights. For him, this world had gone from foreign to familiar in ways he could not have imagined. The people who had once whispered behind his back now regarded him with cautious respect. Some even approached him for advice, marveling at his calm and his insight. Seralith appeared at his side, silent at first. Her presence carried the subtle strength of her rulership, but also a personal curiosity that only he could perceive through the bond. "You watch them too closely," she said softly. "I'm observing patterns," Elias replied. "It helps me understand what to expect." "You taught me that." She smiled faintly. "I did not teach you. You learned." They were quiet for a moment, letting the energy of the city and the faint hum of distant transport wash over them. Despite the formality of their positions, the bond had grown into something more than law and duty. It was respect, trust, and a growing understanding between two very different beings. But tranquility never lasted long. The palace received an urgent message. A coalition of neutral systems requested an audience. They had watched the assembly, seen the way Elias had navigated the crisis, and now they wished to discuss trade, defense, and mutual cooperation with a human directly. Their confidence in the Aurelian Concord had increased not just because of the Queen's leadership, but because of the presence of a human who had proven courage, reason, and wisdom. "Elias," Sarilith said. "They want you to speak." He nodded, straightening his uniform. "I will represent humanity honestly and with respect." The meeting hall was enormous, a structure of floating platforms and transparent walls. Delegates from dozens of systems hovered or sat in observation circles, each one watching intently. Elias began speaking, carefully choosing words that were simple, clear, and grounded in universal principles: cooperation, fairness, and mutual protection. He shared examples from humanity how small nations had survived impossible challenges through collaboration, negotiation, and clever tactics rather than brute force. He emphasized that strength was not only in armies, but in unity, in trust, and in the courage to make difficult decisions. As he spoke, the bond with Sarilith provided subtle support. He could sense her pride, her curiosity, and her growing admiration, not in a romantic sense, but in the profound recognition of what it meant to face the galaxy together. When he finished, the room was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in measured applause. Delegates approached with questions, proposals, and agreements. Trade deals were initiated. Defense pacts were suggested. The human consort who had arrived by accident was now a symbol of reliability and reason across multiple star systems. In the following weeks, Elias adapted to life in ways he had never imagined. He participated in council meetings, assisted in drafting interstellar treaties, and even helped train Aurelian diplomats in human negotiation techniques. He never claimed authority. He only offered perspective, guidance, and his presence as someone who had proven himself under extraordinary circumstances. Meanwhile, the Varkesh Dominion, having suffered a public setback, remained cautious. They observed the Concord with wariness, but they did not attack. Their splinter fleets had been disciplined, their ambassadors restrained, and they realized that challenging the union of human and queen could no longer be done without global scrutiny. Elias had transformed from a problem into a stabilizing factor, a human whose mere presence demanded careful consideration from enemies. Yet the most profound changes were within the palace itself. Sarilith had begun consulting him not merely out of formality, but because she valued his judgment. Their conversations ranged from politics to culture, from strategy to ethics, and sometimes, quietly, to the small details of life gardens, art, even the taste of earth-grown fruits he had smuggled aboard. Through these exchanges, the human had a growing influence, not through force, but through insight and empathy. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the crystal towers, Sarilith invited him to the private garden at the palace center. The plants there were alive with light and energy, responding to thought and emotion, rather than physical touch. Elias walked beside her along a bridge of translucent crystal, reflecting on the journey that had begun with an accidental wedding. "You've changed more than the Varkesh could understand," Sarilith said. Her voice was quiet, almost personal, though they remained surrounded by the quiet hum of the palace. "I've changed too," Elias admitted. "I came here expecting a simple mission. I didn't expect to become part of an empire." "You have become part of more than my empire," she said. "You've become a part of a galaxy that watches us, that listens, that learns." Humans were underestimated. Now they cannot be. The words struck him with the weight of reality. In his own quiet way, he had altered the perception of an entire civilization and perhaps multiple civilizations. The accidental marriage, the ritual he had not understood, had become a catalyst for change that no one could ignore. The days continued with a steady rhythm of council meetings, diplomatic visits, and strategic planning. Every challenge Elias faced, from rival emissaries to delicate interstellar negotiations, was met with a combination of calm reasoning, humility, and adaptability. And every time he acted, the galaxy noticed. Stories of the human consort, who had stood beside a queen without fear, spread quietly at first. Then, more widely, word of his deeds reached Earth, sparking fascination and admiration. Humans who had only known their own small conflicts now glimpsed the vastness of the universe and the remarkable place that one human could occupy within it. Stories circulated not only of the accidental union, but of the courage, wisdom, and integrity Elias displayed. Months passed, and a new era began to take shape. Trade routes expanded. Border disputes were mediated peacefully. Alliances were strengthened through shared experience and trust. The accidental marriage, once considered a liability, had become the foundation for an unprecedented period of cooperation. Elias often found himself walking alone along the palace bridges at night, contemplating the enormity of his journey. From Earth to an alien throne, from an ordinary officer to a symbol of humanity's potential, he had lived through more change in a single year than most could imagine in a lifetime. Serelith joined him silently, standing beside him and looking out over the city lights. "You have given my people something I could not," she said softly. "And what is that?" Elias asked. "Hope," she replied, "and understanding. Humanity is no longer a distant, mysterious species. You have shown that courage, wisdom, and honor are universal." Elias smiled faintly, feeling a rare sense of fulfillment. "Then, perhaps the galaxy is ready for change." Serelith nodded, placing a hand lightly on the bridge's rail beside him. "Change has already begun, thanks to you." The stars stretched endlessly above, a reminder of the vastness of space and the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. The human consort, once an accidental participant in a sacred ritual, now stood at the center of a new era. One where humans, aliens, and all who watched could see that unity, courage, and understanding were more powerful than fear, ambition, or war. In the quiet of the palace garden, Elias understood a profound truth. Life was unpredictable. Destiny often arrived in ways one did not expect, yet, even in the chaos of accidents and unexpected bonds, it was possible to make a difference. And so, humanity's footprint in the stars was no longer small. One human had stood beside a queen, faced the galaxy's challenges, and changed the course of history, not with weapons, not with threats, but with wisdom, courage, and an unshakable commitment to doing what was right. For Elias Carter, the journey was far from over, but for the first time, he felt that he belonged not to a single world, but to the galaxy itself, bound by duty, honor, and an accidental marriage that had forever reshaped the stars. The Empire, the people, and even the distant observers on Earth would remember the human consort who stood unwavering beside an alien queen. His story, born of accident, had become legend, and in that legend, humanity finally took its rightful place among the stars. The galaxy, once indifferent to a single human life, now watched with respect. And Elias, standing quietly beside the queen, understood that this was only the beginning. The accidental marriage had changed everything, and nothing would ever be the same again. If you want, I can also create the full 4-part story in one combined 5,600+ word document, fully polished, ready for YouTube narration or Reddit storytelling, with natural suspense, HFY moments, and cliffhangers for each part. Do you want me to do that next? Part 4, 1400 words, ka, lekho, or interesting hunachea, or third-person style, ma, lekniha, or simple basic English ka, or violated free honachea. Here's Part 4, fully written in third-person style, simple English, violation-free, and designed to be engaging for readers. Part 4, a new era begins. The galaxy had shifted, quietly but irrevocably. News of Elias Carter, the human consort of Queen Serelith, spread across the stars. Some viewed him with curiosity, others with admiration, and a few with thinly veiled fear. He had arrived by accident. But now his presence had changed everything. Not only the perception of humanity, but the balance of power within the Aurelian Concord itself. Elias stood on the high balcony of the palace, overlooking the city that glowed like a living jewel. The towers of polished crystal reflected the light of the twin suns above, and far below, the streets buzzed with activity. Traders from multiple systems had begun to arrive, encouraged by the Concorde's newfound stability. For the first time in generations, outsiders saw the Concorde not as a remote and unpredictable empire, but as a place where diplomacy, law, and courage shaped outcomes. Seralith joined him silently. Her long form moved with her usual grace, but Elias noticed a rare softness in her expression. The queen's mind was always calculating, always weighing risk and reward. But tonight, there was something different. She was watching him as one watches a trusted partner, not just a human who had become part of a law, but someone who had earned her respect. "The coalition ships are arriving soon," Seralith said, her voice calm but tinged with anticipation. "Neutral systems have responded to your invitation. They wish to witness our unity firsthand." Elias nodded, scanning the horizon. Indeed, faint outlines of foreign vessels were beginning to appear in the upper atmosphere, hovering in perfect formation. Their presence was respectful, not aggressive, a marked contrast to the Varkesh fleet that had threatened war months earlier. "This will be your first formal interaction with multiple alien powers," Seralith continued. "You must represent humanity wisely." "I will do my best," Elias said, "not because I'm qualified to rule, but because I can show what humans are capable of." The moment was solemn, yet filled with a quiet excitement. The assembly hall had been prepared to accommodate delegates from over 30 systems, floating platforms circling a central dais where the queen and her consort would appear. Holographic translators shimmered around them, ensuring that every word and every gesture would be understood by every observer. As the session began, delegates exchanged formal greetings, their voices layered with tones and subtle vibrations unique to their species. Some were cautious, watching Elias closely. Others were openly curious. For the human consort, this was new territory. He had studied diplomacy extensively, but nothing prepared him for the intensity of being observed by so many intelligent eyes. Seralith spoke first, her words commanding attention. "Welcome to the Aurelian Concord. We gather to demonstrate that unity and law are stronger than fear or suspicion. Our empire honors tradition, yet we also embrace what is fair and just." Then Elias spoke. Simple, measured words carried across the chamber, amplified by the bond he shared with the queen. "I am a human, from a distant planet called Earth. I came here as an observer, but I have learned that courage, trust, and honesty are universal. My role is not to rule, but to represent what humanity believes. That cooperation can overcome fear, and that wisdom often comes from understanding, not strength alone." The chamber fell silent. Some delegates had expected bravado or arrogance. Instead, they saw humility combined with sharp insight. The human did not demand respect, he earned it. One particularly skeptical envoy from a neighboring system challenged him. "Your presence here is unproven. Why should we trust a human who did not choose to be part of this empire?" Elias's gaze was steady. "Because the test has already been passed. Threats arrived, and we faced them without violence. Decisions were made that prioritized life over pride, law over fear. Trust is not given lightly, but it is earned through action, and today, every decision taken here has proven that our approach works." A ripple of approval spread through the platforms. Neutral observers whispered to each other. Some even gestured in acknowledgement, recognizing the wisdom of a species they had long underestimated. After the formal session, delegates approached Elias with questions, seeking advice and insights into human culture and problem-solving. He shared stories of Earth's history of survival, compromise, and adaptation, carefully selecting examples that emphasized ingenuity rather than aggression. Every response reinforced a growing truth. Humanity was no longer a distant, weak species. It was a presence to be reckoned with. Days turned into weeks. The Concorde expanded trade agreements, established new diplomatic ties, and strengthened border defenses. Elias worked tirelessly beside Seralith, offering guidance when needed and learning the subtleties of alien politics. He did not seek power, yet he wielded influence simply by being consistent, calm, and fair. Even the Varkesh dominion, the empire that had once threatened war, watched closely. Their envoys remained cautious, unwilling to act rashly after the public exposure of their own miscalculations. Elias had turned a perceived weakness into an advantage. He had shown that even a human, inexperienced in alien law and custom, could stabilize an entire system through clarity, courage, and integrity. Amid this political and diplomatic whirlwind, Elias also found moments of quiet reflection. One evening, he and Sarilith walked through the palace gardens, where bioluminescent flora responded to thought and emotion rather than touch. The soft glow of the plants mirrored the calm that had begun to settle over both of them. "You've done more than I imagined," Sarilith said, her tone almost tender. "You've changed how my people see themselves and how the galaxy sees us." "I didn't plan any of this," Elias said, watching the light shift beneath their feet. "I just tried to do what felt right." "That is why it works," Sarilith replied. "The galaxy expects cunning, aggression, and ambition. You show them something different. You show them balance." They walked in silence, comfortable in each other's presence, a silent acknowledgement that the bond they shared had grown beyond ceremony. It was trust, respect, and understanding. The accidental marriage that had caused fear and confusion had evolved into something far more meaningful, a partnership that symbolized possibility. Weeks later, a new threat emerged not from an enemy fleet, but from political unrest in one of the outer systems. A minor rebellion sought to challenge Aurelian authority, hoping that the distraction of the human consort would weaken the queen's position. Elias and Sarilith acted quickly. He advised diplomatic engagement, combined with strategic positioning of Concord forces to avoid unnecessary conflict. Using his knowledge of negotiation and human psychology, Elias suggested ways to appeal to the rebels' desire for fairness rather than dominance. The plan succeeded. Rebels were persuaded to stand down peacefully, impressed by the calm decisiveness and clear reasoning of the human consort. Word of this success traveled fast, reinforcing Elias's reputation as a stabilizing presence. Finally, as the dust of political maneuvering settled, the Concord celebrated its first era of real stability in decades. Delegates, envoys, and citizens alike recognized that history had changed. A human had become a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what courage and integrity could achieve even in the most alien circumstances. Elias stood with Sarilith one last time on the palace balcony. The twin moons hung low, casting soft silver light over the city. "You have changed everything," Sarilith said. "No," Elias replied. "We have changed everything. Humanity, the Concord, the galaxy, all of it together." She placed a hand lightly on his shoulder, a gesture both formal and intimate. "And now, we step forward, not as a queen and her accidental consort, but as partners in shaping the future." Elias looked out over the glowing towers, the ships arriving from distant systems, and the citizens who now regarded him with respect. He had started as an explorer, an ordinary human, far from home. Now, he was a symbol, a guide, and a witness to a new era. The accidental marriage had become the foundation of interstellar change. Humanity's place among the stars was no longer uncertain. One human had stood beside a queen, faced the galaxy's challenges, and helped create a future defined not by fear or power, but by courage, wisdom, and trust. And as the night deepened, Elias understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had opened its eyes to humanity's potential. The story of a human consort who had arrived by accident would be remembered for generations. For Elias Carter, life had changed forever. And in that change, he found purpose, hope, and the extraordinary truth that even one person could alter the course of history. The stars stretched endlessly above. A new era had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again.